In this week's Wild World of Weather, we're not officially in winter yet, but folks up in Montana and North Dakota got a winter blast pretty early. They saw the nation's first snowstorm this week with snow piling as high as a foot. Heavy snow caused road closures as well as the closing of businesses and schools. That snowstorm is a part of the bone-chilling cold temperatures that will sweep across the nation through much of the weekend and into the first part of next week. We'll certainly feel some temperatures that will cool down with that as well next week. From snow to fire, some California residents had to flee their homes ahead of a brush fire. Truckee Meadows Fire and Rescue, that's northeast of Sacramento, says the 47-acre fire started on Tuesday and prompted the evacuation of around 60 homes. Luckily, the evacuation was able to be lifted quickly. Despite how large the fire was, there have been no reports of homes or businesses that have been burned, which is great news. And check this out. This is pretty incredible stuff here. Death Valley is known as the hottest place in the world and the driest place in North America, but there are flowers growing here. 2 months after Hurricane Hilary dumped record rain in this area, there are signs of new life in the national park there. The National Park Service says Badwater Basin, the lowest point in North America, is now home to a temporary lake that is several miles long. Hilary dumped a year's worth of rain, that's 2.2 inches, by the way, on Death Valley in just 24 hours on August 20th when Hilary hit. That was the wettest day in the park's history. Next, we head to Mexico, where history was also made this week, and not in a good way. Hurricane Otis became Mexico's strongest storm to make landfall. It slammed the coast early Wednesday morning near Acapulco as a Category 5 and lashed the coastline with sustained winds of 165 miles per hour. Most of the resort town is left without power, and many buildings have been severely damaged along with its infrastructure. As of now, the death toll stands at around 27, with several people still missing. Otis underwent an explosive rapid intensification within 24 hours and went from a tropical storm to a powerful Category 5. So it's some pretty intense stuff there going on the west coast of Mexico. Something that we need to keep in mind here, of course. Kelsey, you were talking about this yesterday, how Otis intensified so quickly. It's something we need to keep in mind here, that is our new normal. Right, especially as we talked about, people didn't evacuate because a lot of them thought a tropical storm was coming through. And all the models saw that too. So that's something that, you know, as a weather community, we'll be kind of going back on and doing a lot of intense studying.
All right. Thank you, Amber.